listening to the LOZ Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LOZ Podcast Network. And we have another edition of My Brain is Not Braining with Dr. Genevieve Bendick. Dr. Genevieve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ken?
This is awesome time of year. A lot of people going into the holidays. You know, we're going to fatten up for the holidays. We're going to enjoy ourselves. And then as we get to maybe like January 1st or 2nd, we're all going to have a resolution, right? Everybody's got these New Year's resolutions. I'm going to change everything about me. You know, now that we're getting in December and everyone's thinking about those New Year's resolutions, why do so many people make resolutions? And, you know, why do they fail?
Well, there's something about December that naturally makes us reflect, right? We review our goals, we review our year, we imagine, what worked, what didn't work, and then we start feeling all those kind of like prompting to reset, like we need something new. The problem is that all these resolution things come from like feeling guilty or pressure or, comparison with others, or we create this fantasy, not really from clarity. So that's why we end up into this new resolution, failure resolution. So we think that somehow January 1st, will magically change our patterns, right?
It's going to change my life. I can do everything the wrong way up till the end of December, and then January comes around, I'm going to change everything.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why, resolutions fail, because what happened is we are trying to create a new life using the old operating systems that didn't work in the past.
And, from a neuropsychology perspective, what's actually happening in the brain? What's going on in my brain when I do that? Like, help me understand so maybe I can deal with it better.
Yeah. So I remember saying that in my last episode, when our brain really, really thrive in things that are new, novel, right? They immediately, it's almost like you're feeding the brain something. So when we're creating resolutions, immediately release that dopamine that the brain really craves, excitement, hope, motivation. It's a new thing. The problem is that dopamine is just temporary, right? Once the stress return, bills, work, kids, responsibilities, that dopamine completely fades, and your brain returns back to that old patterns, what is familiar, what feels familiar to it. So what we know is inspirations really activates the idea, but patterns really determine your outcome.
Well, and you say patterns, and you talk a lot about loops, and in your work, and what are loops, and why do people get stuck repeating the same patterns every year?
Well, loops are those automatic emotional and behavioral drivers, I always say. Those internal drivers that we fall into without really realizing it, because they're automatic. That, for example, the avoidance loop, the all or nothing loop, that perfectionist loop, or that start quick and if not finishing a project loop. All of those things that really are almost like the drivers, the internal drivers and patterns that we don't really see it. They are just hidden, right? And it's not because we don't have the discipline or we're weak. People don't fail because they're weak. It's because they are in that internal loop and they don't really realize it.
And so tell me a little bit about internal blockers. You spoke about that a little bit too. What happens with internal blockers and how does that affect us?
So the main ones are usually they're like fear, right? We have a huge fears. I think is one of the number ones. Fear of failing, fear of actually succeeding sometime, because if you succeed now you have to maintain it, right? What if you fail again, right? And then disappointing yourself or getting hurt. That is, I think fear is one of the number one drivers. And, feeling overwhelmed. People sometimes feel like everything, they do a lot of dreams. They create this goals that are sometimes not really planned. And then when they're into those goals, they feel overwhelmed and they shut down. Sometimes even the feeling of numbness when people are feeling numb, they're not feeling anything, they're mistaken like, okay, I don't have feelings, it's just I don't have motivation. It is your brain actually trying to protect yourself because you're feeling overwhelmed. So it's like while we talk about that amygdala taking over because you're in that survival loop and immediately it shuts down. And that is that feelings of overwhelm. Right.
Yeah,
And the
I
other one,
like it.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Oh, and I think so there are three, right? And then the other one is that identity wounds. That thought continually, it's almost like a program in your brain that says, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, never works for me, I can't do this. And it continues. It's like a broken record that continue that loop.
You know, I liken it to like people, okay, I'm going to start working out. It's January 1st. I'm going back to the gym, right? I'm going to get healthy again. And you go to the gyms on January 2nd and they're packed. You can't even get on a machine, right? You go back about a month later, you can get on any machine you want. Like 30 days later, everybody who was out there and motivated and they decided they were going to change their whole outlook, bought got involved and decided I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do something. And 30 days later, 70% of the people, they're not there anymore. Why does that happen?
You know, I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't learn about loops because I read a famous, research journal or textbooks. I actually learned about loops because of my own experience and my own patterns, right? I remember I think it was like kind of like the end of November, I invited my cousin and we were going to do this vision board. We were going to plan all our goals, color coordinated. We had everything. It became beautiful. But then like at the end of January, I was like extremely shut down, overwhelmed, burned in my own expectations and feeling like a failure, right? And what happened is like, I didn't know that what truly was happening is I was overwhelmed. I was in that survival mode and I didn't know it. So it wasn't that I was not disciplined or not motivated enough because I was motivated to change, but I didn't have the tools to change. So that moment is when I really realized, okay, I don't need another vision board. I don't need another motivational speech. I really need the tools. And I needed the pattern of understanding. I am actually overwhelmed. This is my brain trying to tell me something, and I need tools to help support my brain.
Well, tell us, share some simple brain-based tools somebody can use to start breaking old patterns. I mean, what can we do?
So one of the things that I always say is the first thing is awareness, right? We need to really know that brain language. So I always say the 10-second pause. Or what I call the wise mind. It is that 10, it's almost like a bubble. It is the space where you can hold what you're experiencing, and then you can bring your logical brain and say, okay, what is it? What's going on? Is this the loop or is the life that I am setting up for, right? When we go into, why am I procrastinating? Why am I overthinking? Why am I trying to quit things because it became too hard? Or maybe boring, right? What is happening right now? And what is it that I need in order to respond to this challenge? Do I really need to quit? Do I really need to eat my bucket of ice cream? Do I really need to go to Netflix and stay there instead of like actually continue the plans or the set goals that I've done? So that pause, just that awareness really activates the frontal cortex, which is that area in your brain that gives you choice, that makes decisions. So then you end up with like, okay, the opportunity of choosing that activates the choice.
So a lot of it is just self-training. You have to really get yourself trained to, recognize it in yourself, stop to break those old patterns, definitely understand where you're at in the process so that you can help yourself get out of it. Because otherwise, like you said, you're going to be in this loop and you're never gonna break out of it.
Right. Absolutely. It's recognizing all those self-sabotaging things. Like what are the patterns that we're living or we go to every time that something happens? Realizing that really help us activate that area in our brain. It's almost like you uncovered the thief, right?
Yeah. So, what are some things we can do in December to help us be successful in January? Like, give me, what's some small thing that someone can do and start doing in December, that's going to dramatically increase the chances of success when we get to this, epiphany of January and our whole new, our whole new way of living.
Well, sometimes it sounds very cheesy, but I think journaling is a powerful tool. Being able to set yourself apart and be able to really analyze, this is the research in you. Be able to say, okay, I'm going to analyze what are my past goals. What happened there? What happened are this goal aligning to the life that I want to have? What are the patterns that are the interrupters of those goals? What happened? What happened before? What happened after? Why am I not able to continue being consistent? Is it because did I plan it right? And right meaning, was it sustainable? Can I really attain it, or was out of a fantasy of comparison or fear, right? So being able to really analyze what are those patterns of thoughts? What are those 3 factors? Am I driven by fear? Am I driven by overwhelm and burnout? Or am I driven because I do have that internal record, the internal wounds telling me I am not good enough, even though I want to and I have the motivation? Those are the drivers of my outcomes.
Yeah, and I love the journaling aspect of it because you can truly, until you write it down, until you see it in front of you, you have all these thoughts going on in your brain all the time. And to be able to process that and to kind of look at it and say, look, this is, okay, now I see a pattern coming together here. I know how to address it. I can start affecting it. And I think most people, I think that's what you're telling them is you can affect your patterns. You don't have to keep doing what you've been doing, but you have to recognize when you're in that frame of mind so that you can move out of it and get to some place it's better for you.
Right. So sometimes what happens is we fail because of our inner world is not matching our external goals, right? So recognizing that is one. And the other one is, the idea, if you are born in an environment that there has been a lot of criticism, a lot of pain, a lot of kind of like puts you into that survival mode kind of environment, then you have been taught to survive instead of possibilities, instead of dreaming about something new. So then you go through life just expecting life to happen to you instead of you actually taking control of your outcomes. And so identifying that perspective and changing it first, no matter how many strategies you have, you will not be able to pass the step 1, which is, okay, I am able to do it. I am able to take control. Then I'm able to maintain it. But if you have only the goals, but you don't really have that change of perspective, you're not going to be able to sustain it.
Well, and then that's such great advice. And I mean, I think, that's why I love these podcasts because people really can get some tools they can use every day to kind of make their lives better. And a lot of what you talk about is truly recognizing the pattern you're in and trying to understand when you're there so that you can bring yourself out of it because, we get so consumed on a daily basis with everything around us. And let's face it, if we just had ourselves to worry about, it might be easier, but we also have families and we have work relationships and there's all that going on. So just trying to find some time to sit down and do some journaling and figure out what's going on in your own brain so that you can be better and you can actually be successful and, help move things forward in your life and not get stuck in a loop. You've got a program coming up though, right? That
Yes.
It's a new program that you're going to be doing in January. And basically you're going to be talking to people about, different things they can do. And it's a 6-week program, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
So it's a 6 weeks program, and it is like what we said, like the first step is identifying. It's almost like going through a discovery of yourself, discovery of your patterns, all like what have you used before and why it didn't work, right? And then after that, when you discover those patterns, how can we change? How can we interrupt those loops? Because first is identifying, interrupting the loops, then adding skills, right? We're talking about that emotional overwhelm, right? How can we stop the survival loop? How can we able to adapt some skills so when things get harder, because dreams and goals, obviously good things come sometimes in a harder work, right? Uh,
Hmm.
we are, I think, a creature that avoids discomfort and avoids pain. And I'm talking about experience for my own self. Like I don't
Right. We've all been there.
I don't like pain. I don't like discomfort. So when things start getting more like harder, more complex, I tend to like start feeling that, ooh, I'm going to start quitting and then analyzing, okay, what is happening? Yes, being able to endure the discomfort and be able to adapt some skills to be able to continue until you actually complete your goal. So that's one of the things. And then how are you doing your goals? Are they really sustainable? Are they measurable? Are they actually specific enough that you can measure the progress? And so be able to have a specific and strategic plan in order to have effective goals.
And
And
so they're gonna to sign up for this program. They go to your website. Is that the place they
yes,
can sign up for it?
they can go to our
So
website.
so they can go to neurocarecenterllc.com. They can also call you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you want to give Dr. Genevieve a call, you can inquire 573-286-3234, and she'll be more than happy to help get you back on the road, out of these loops. I love that loop thing. It sticks with me because I feel like that's something that people get into, and you get into this continuous loop of not being successful, and you're not doing what you want to do, and being able to break out of that. Those are such great tools that you're giving us to work on.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I think can people, including myself, we're burned, right? There's so many things that we have done, we've tried because we really, it's not because people that are stuck in a place, it's not because they want to be stuck there. It's because they don't have the awareness and the necessary tools. So this is not, a glitter vision board. And don't get me wrong, I do believe in vision boards, but when they're plan specific and strategic, right? So it's not about glitter or like new year, new you. It's more about like really knowing yourself, understanding your brain patterns, right? And how to break your loops and building goals that actually works when you put a strategic plan.
Well, we are so grateful to have you on the podcast series, and I'm excited that you have this new program coming up and that you're helping people. And guys, remember, you can call Dr. Genevieve for anything that you have going on. I mean, she's there to help. That's what she does, and she's an amazing resource that we have at Lake of the Ozarks. And now with the technology, you don't even have to be at the lake. You can be anywhere because you'll do a video call with anybody, so they could be anywhere in the United States or the world for that matter.
Yes,
So
we offer telehealth for sure.
yeah, and that's such a cool way to, I love the telehealth option. I think that's just amazing. So remember, get a hold of Dr. Genevieve, get this 6-week program, do something this year that's going to make you be even more successful to get through, and maybe you actually can get these goals and you can attain them as opposed to quitting like everybody else does all the time. So I love the tools.
Yes. Well, my pleasure, Ken. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, guys, that's another edition of My Brain is Not Braining with Dr. Genevieve Bendeck. We love this series. We can't wait to tackle new things coming up, and I hope this helped you guys out. And make sure you get a hold of Dr. Genevieve and get signed up for that program. Have a great holiday.